It's the Walter Ostlie question and answer show. You ask them, I answer them. Walter Ostlie question and answer. Hey, I'm Walter, doing what I can to make comics easier because it shouldn't be overwhelming or daunting to tell your story. I make videos about making comics easier, obviously, so if that's something you're into, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. And today we have question and answer where you ask the questions and I try to answer them. So let's go ahead and start with the first question. All right, so this one isn't from anybody in particular, but a lot of people ask or complain about blurry images, and there could be a few reasons for this. One of them being that your image is just too small. Webtoon requires 800 pixels wide, so that's what they're going to show your image as. So if your image is 1600 pixels wide, you're fine because your image is bigger. They're going to shrink it down. But if your image is less than 800 pixels wide, then they're going to increase it or blow it up. And that's when stuff can start becoming pixelated or blurry. The other reasons why this might be happening is the brush that you're using might not be the right fit for the size of the canvas you're using. So you might want to try using a different brush and seeing if that still has the same effect, or just increasing the size of your canvas to work with that brush. And then one of the other things that I think it could be is if you're working on a canvas that is 800 pixels wide and your screen, your tablet or your monitor is 1600 pixels wide, then you're not going to have to zoom in to see the entire canvas. But as soon as you zoom in, if to get that 800 pixels wide to fill up your 1600 pixels wide screen, now you're zoomed in at 200%. No matter what size your canvas is, if you zoom in at 200%, it's going to look pixelated and blurry. So check out those things, make sure those are right. And if not, just reach out to me. The only way really for me to check it is if you give me your original file, and I'm willing to do that within reason. All right, question 2. All right, so Laser Tag asks, I have some questions. Can you be fired from featured? I can't wrap my head around what the minimum length is. Do you do count by panels since there are no pages? Would it be around 30 panels a week? What about strips? Do they ever get featured? Also, if your story ends, do you stop getting featured or paid? So technically, yes, you can be fired from featured if you're in breach of contract because you said something stupid, or you stopped turning in your episodes and you did not give them a reason, or you just started ghosting them, then technically, yeah, they can end the contract. You could also, if you want, end the contract as well. And as far as the minimum length is concerned, it's around 50 panels a week for a featured comic. And yes, you just count the panels because there are no pages. So each individual moment in your episode is what would be considered a panel. And as far as the strips are concerned, yes, there are featured strips. And of course, that update schedule is going to look a little different. They're going to have less panels, but they're probably going to update more often. You could probably get like a gag a day strip that updates every 5 days, but it only has like maybe 3 to 10 panels in it. Ash Ketchum asks, do Webtoon editors reach out to me, or can I reach out to them? If so, how can I reach out to them? So currently there is no way for anybody to reach out to an editor. They have to reach out to you. And the only way for that to happen is for the editors to find you. And of course, one of the best ways to do that is to just make the comic and post it on Webtoon. I know the editors go and look at Canvas comics. It's happened to a few of my friends and they've reached out, or they've been at least featured on the homepage. So that is a really good way to do it. Of course, I went to conventions and I met the editors there. You might be able to find a Webtoon booth at a convention. Conventions aren't really a thing for 2020, but if conventions come back, if Webtoon is there, you could always go up there and ask if there's an editor or someone there who would be willing to look at your portfolio or comic, and that would be another way to do it. But as far as online, there's no way to submit a comic to be reviewed other than putting it on Canvas, which is basically like a portfolio review. Ashi206 asks, when you publish a comic, does Webtoon, the company, get notified? So I'm not sure exactly what you mean. There's nobody at Webtoon that's going to get a direct message when you post your comic. If you think about it, there are so many comics on Webtoon, there is no way that someone could be notified of all of them. Their DM box would just blow up. Of course, the computers know when you update because obviously it goes there, but they're not checking to see when each individual comic updates. when you're featured, in case that's what you're talking about, you have to work directly with editors at Webtoon. So they're the ones that actually handle updating your comic for you. So they know you don't actually have to do it yourself. Ash Ketchum also asked, do I have to color my comic? You do not have to color your comic. Obviously, colors tend to be more popular because they pop and they're easier to read. Black and white comics are still popular. There's popular black and white comics. All of manga is black and white, so it's definitely possible you don't have to color it, but it's really important to think about your artwork in a black and white sense. You need to think beforehand that you're not going to color it, and so you need to think about the artwork differently so that the artwork works in black and white. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to do this comic, and then when you're done drawing it, be like, you know what, I can't color it, I don't have time. I mean, you can do that, you can do whatever you want, but the artwork is going to suffer because of it, because you were planning on coloring it and now you're not going to color it. So basically it just looks like uncolored artwork, versus if you were planning for it to be black and white in the first place, now it's black and white artwork. So you can see it's kind of vague, but you know, on one hand, if you're planning for it to be black and white, the artwork is done. If you're planning for it to be in color and you don't color it, now the artwork is incomplete. So it's just kind of, you need to think about it in a black and white way. It's black and white artwork is not just artwork that isn't colored. It's artwork that is meant to be black and white, if that makes sense. Technical Cart Gaming asks, by the way, I'm thinking of uploading a webcomic. Can I make it once a month? You can make it any schedule that you want it to be. It can be once a week, twice a week. It could be twice a month. It could be once a month. It could be every 6 months. It's just whatever works for you, whatever makes sense for your schedule. The most important thing is that you make the comic and that you put it out there, and at whatever schedule that works for you, then that's fine. It's just important to let your readers know maybe that you're going to do an update every month. So they know. So they're not waiting around every week for a new update. They know that it's not going to be until next month that they're going to see an update. And then as soon as you create that relationship with your reader, then it's fine. Obviously, you don't want to say you're going to post next month and then don't post for a year. People are going to forget about it. But of course, life happens. And if you can't post every month and something changes and you got to, stop posting or go on hiatus for a year, that's fine. Do life. Don't feel guilty about that. Stuff happens, and when you're not doing it as a full-time job, it makes sense that other stuff is going to become more important than your comic. But yeah, post at whatever schedule you want. Post however many panels you want. Just whatever works for you. Just make your comic and put it out there. That's the only way to get started. Rainbow Rose asks, sorry for another question. Do you have work, blah, blah, blah. Do you have to work with an editor to get featured? I was thinking about pre-drawing everything and just uploading it weekly or bi-weekly. You can totally do that if that what works for you. I could understand wanting to finish the comic before you upload it. I did that with my first webcomic. I was uploading as I went and it just became too stressful, so I stopped. Finished the second half of the book before I ever started uploading again. So yeah, I can understand why you would want to do that, and you can totally do that. If an editor saw that and they decided to feature that comic, obviously you would have to talk to them, work it out. They would definitely want to read your comic and they would have input, possibly. I don't think they would want to drastically change your story or anything, but there might be some dialogue stuff if something doesn't read right, grammar mistakes, things like that, or there might be pacing things. They might ask you to add a few panels here or there, but that's stuff that you would work out. If they liked your comic enough, they're not going to be like, you know what, scrap that whole second half and redo it. Of course, they might. I don't know what happens in the second half of your story. Only you do. So, but at that time, it's up to you on whether you want to do that or not. Of course, they would be paying you, so maybe it would be worth it to redraw the second half of your comic if you agreed with them that what their suggestions were that made it better, but I don't think they would want to change it that much. Rainbow Rose asks, I may be a little late, but what are some demonetizable, I hate saying that word, words? Would kill or hurt be one? I have a comic I want to write, but the title includes the word kill. The comic itself doesn't involve any graphics like blood, and if I did decide to show something, it would be heavily censored. I don't think kill or hurt are going to really demonetize your comic or keep your comic hidden. There's nothing really, bad about the word kill. So you could make a comic called Kill Hurt Machine And I think you would be totally fine, especially if you're not showing anything graphically violent. And then I'm just going to do a follow-up to this. I know you didn't specifically ask, but violence questions tend to come up a lot. A lot of you out there are super violent people, hopefully just in your stories and not in real life. So everyone asks like, oh, how much violence can I show? This is a tough question. You got to remember the terms of service that Webtoon puts out there is to protect themselves from somebody putting up something completely horrible. It gives them recourse to remove that comic without any fault being placed on them. So that's the reason why they have it there. They're not trying to be crazy censors and only put out stuff that they like. But you got to remember too, Webtoon is a platform for everyone. And so that is a view that they're trying to cultivate. So while at the same time they're not looking for comics, they're not trying to chop comics and throw them off of their platform. It's just a way to protect themselves. And I think if you can see a movie in the movie theaters, a rated R movie or something, straight to Netflix, minus some of the ones they've been putting out recently, then that stuff is gonna work. That's fine, you know, someone getting killed, you know, their heads chopped off, whatever, stab, sword fights, guns, shootings, all that stuff, you know, action movies, Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Rock, all that stuff is probably fine, you know? It's gonna become, you know it when you see it, right? So I can't exactly say, plus it's a human decision. So I would say, you know, like if you've seen something, movie that other people have seen and it's not something that was on the dark web or something gross like that, then you're probably gonna be fine. All right, I'm gonna mess this name, but Chinelo Okonkwo asks, how do you block people in all caps? I hope nothing really horrible happened, but if you want to block somebody in the comments, you can report, on Webtoon anyways, you can report that particular comic. I believe you can do this on pretty much almost any platform that allows commenting, except maybe Facebook, because Facebook doesn't care. But on Webtoon, there is a way to report that particular comic. You could also go to the support pages of Webtoon and reach out to them that way and send screenshots of those comments of that person that might be harassing you. I hope it was nothing too bad, but that would be how you block people, I guess. Freds the Foz Baz Class asks, okay, I need help with something. When you letter stuff, what are the appropriate amount of words where you can start making double lines? I don't know if you understand. If I did something like, oh God, would that be one line or 2 lines? If I did a sentence like, I hate pickles so much, try them. So this is gonna be a case-by-case basis. You gotta remember that lettering is all about fitting the artwork. So depending on the space that you have in the artwork, that's gonna dictate what your balloon should look like. So if your space is wider, then you're gonna fit more words per line. If it's tall but not too much width, you're only gonna have like 1 or 2 words per line. So it's important to just make that balloon fit. And just in general, I tend to like to make I have some lettering videos that you could watch for more specifics, but I like to make my balloons kind of diamond shape or kind of a squashed oval shape. And that's just the way my balloons look. So if you do that, your words will take up as much space in the balloon as possible, which means you're wasting less space in general, which means there's less art being covered up by the lettering. And that's the whole point, is for the lettering to be clear, to be readable, and also for it not to cover up that much art. And as far as using a character using double word balloons, I like to keep singular thoughts or punctuated moments per balloon, like this sucks would be 1 balloon. Do you think we should go get food would be the 2nd balloon. Now, if there isn't space, obviously I would smash these 2 together where it'd be 1 balloon that just says, this sucks, do you want to go get some food? But if I could, it would be 2 balloons, so I could just be like, this sucks. So it really hits in that moment and has more impact. If you have it in 1 word balloon, it's not as much impact. Delta 8 asks, okay, I've been thinking a lot about what happens when you're featured and you have to upload every week and then you finish your project. Like, do you stop uploading because it's over? Do you tell Webtoon that you're done? So if you're a featured comic, you're going to be working directly with Webtoon editors. So they're gonna know when you finish an episode, when those episodes go up, because you'll be showing them those episodes. They look at that stuff, they help with edits, they fix any spelling, grammar mistakes, and they're also going to be the ones who are uploading it. And when you get featured, you sign a contract, and the contract says that you're going to produce this many episodes. So it's kind of already understood that you're going to create 50 episodes. And so when you do that, they know you have your story, you outline your story, it works in 50 episodes or less. So there's an understanding right out of the gate how many episodes you're going to expect to deliver, when those are going to go up, and all of that stuff. So you don't really have to tell them because you're already talking to them the entire time. Lilulia asks, hello, I have several questions that have been bugging me for some time now. It's about the exclusivity of when you're featured, what remains exclusive, the image files, the character story settings. Can you make another story along the same lines? Can you offer sneak peeks or share the making of? So I'll answer this one just in general. The entirety of your story, your characters, are basically what's exclusive. Not only are the episodes that you're creating for Webtoon exclusive, you can't post those anywhere, you can't print them it's a 3-year exclusivity. You can't put it on another website. Also, your story and your characters are also considered exclusive of the world in which it is. So you couldn't create like a spin-off story and start posting that somewhere else, at least for those 3 years. Once the 3 years are over, you get all that stuff back. You can do whatever you want with it. And yeah, you can offer sneak peeks, work in progresses behind the scenes to like patrons on Patreon or any other type of support you have that way. Obviously, you wouldn't want to give away like the complete episodes. I would also maybe wait until those episodes go live and then start sharing that stuff. Sharing like a panel on Instagram or TikTok, or scrolling through a few things, or showing your work in progress on TikTok for a single panel or maybe a couple panels. Like, that's not a huge deal. That's going to be fine. That's marketing. That's going to bring more people to your Webtoon, which of course is going to make Webtoon happy. So stuff like that you can definitely do. But as far as creating a spin-off story or posting your comic or printing your comic, you can't do that during the exclusivity contract. Of course, contracts are all negotiable. So if there's something specific you want to do, that's something that you could talk to Webtoon about and see if that was something that you could work out with them. Yashiro Nen asks, what is the highest you can get paid in Webtoon? I have no idea. Technically, there is ad share revenue, so the possibilities are infinite amounts of money. I don't know how many billions of dollars are in the world, but if every single person in the world was reading your comic and your comic got some of the highest paying advertisers, then yeah, I have no idea how much money you could make. It could be a lot. I think the more important question for a lot of people should be, what is the least amount of money? Because that's going to tell you whether you could do it as a job. And as far as I'm concerned, the amount that Webtoon pays is definitely a livable wage. I wouldn't want to say minimum wage, like US, it's actually higher than that. Maybe the proposed $15 an hour, I think it's slightly higher than that, depending on how long it takes you to draw. Obviously, if it takes you a month to draw a panel, it's going to be way lower than minimum wage. But if you could draw, an entire episode in a day, well, then you're making a crap ton of money. So it all kind of depends. But I would definitely say it's a livable wage if you're living a reasonable life. Lisa Banana asks, hey, Walter, thank you so much for your videos. I have a question. What about the language we use in the comic? I have a Webtoon short story. Is it better to post in English so people can read and understand, or stick to my native language, French? There are definitely more English readers, I believe, on Webtoon. All the comics there are in English for the most part. So if you put it in English, you're going to have more readers. I know that might not make for the best reading experience because you're not used to speaking or writing in English, and you don't know all the natives of having it be your first language. But what you want to do with that is probably just get some English friends or English readers and let them read it, and they can clean it up for you. I have some friends that live in like Sweden and stuff, and I help them with that. You can go to Reddit and go to like Webtoons or comic collaborators or comic collabs, or you could go to penciljack.com or find Facebook groups, or go to the Illustrati Discord and post your comic there and ask people if they could read it, and make sure that, you know, the dialogue is okay. Of course, you know, if you post like a huge, like 100 panels or something, the less amount of people are going to read it, because it is time consuming to read all that stuff and give a whole bunch of feedback. But, you know, if there's a part of it that you're struggling with, or if you give a lot of advance notice, you might find more people. People are generally helpful in the webcomic community as a whole, so that would be an option. But I would definitely say more English readers are out there, so more people are going to be able to read your comic as opposed to posting it in French. And just as a side note, I really want to learn how to read French, because France produces some really awesome comics. So if you speak French and you have not checked out French comics, that is something you should definitely check out. Jay Johnson asks, I know you were answering everything in your videos. I just wanted to know, I've seen webtoons that make references to other webtoons, so I was wondering if that was allowed. Maybe you have to contact the writer of said story or something, and just wanted to know. So this is something that a lot of people do. They put little Easter eggs in their comics of other comics that their friends made, or just comics that they like, and this is totally reasonable. Throwing a poster in the background, or maybe a character is reading a book with the title of that comic, or maybe even one of the characters make a cameo in the background, stuff like that is fine. The problem is going to be is if you ever take one of their characters and kind of make them engage with the story, where they start talking, or maybe something happens between the characters. That's where it gets tricky, because now you're using somebody else's character and it's becoming canon in your story, and then the trick becomes like, well, they're part of your story. Do they own a chunk of your thing? And so that's like something that you don't really want to mess with. Plus, you know, you don't have rights to use that character. So if your story ever got made into a movie and someone was like, ooh, I really like that character, and you're like, oh, well, you know, that's not my character. And that's not to say that you can't, like if it's like a small little cameo role where the guy orders a coffee from your main character or something, if your character is a barista, and like something like that might be okay. But in those kind of cases, I would definitely reach out to the creator and ask them if that's something that they would be okay with. But as far as like posters or books or something, toys in the background, I've done a whole bunch of that stuff, and I don't usually ask the creators or my friends about it, because I like it to be a surprise if or when they see that stuff when they read the comic. Fufu asks, is it okay to use existing names in your story for title or elements? I couldn't, coincidentally, my magic system and a game studio have the same name as one of my story, have a similar title to a TV show. So if you know beforehand that there's something else out there with a similar title and you haven't started your comic, I would say think about trying to come up with another title, because it's just gonna cause less headaches going in the future. Something might never happen with that, but you know, if you know about it beforehand, just start thinking. If you come up with something better, then use it. You know, if there's another comic out there and they're already established, and you definitely want to change the name. If there's a company that is similar or in the same realm as comics, you would want to change the name. If a game studio has a name and there's like a magic system or a town or a character in your story that has the same name, that's not as big of a deal. It doesn't really matter. It's when you start getting into the trademark zone where you're gonna sell merchandise that has that name on it, and they're selling merchandise that has that name on it, and one of you have a trademark. That's where it starts getting tricky. But as far as like just naming things inside of your story, that's not a huge deal. But yeah, as soon as you start selling stuff that has stuff printed on it, a name printed on it, that's when it starts to get tricky if they're doing it and you're doing it. So it's just better if you know beforehand to just try to come up with a better title. All right, so Internet Spectator asked, this question might seem random, but how long did it take you to get good at digital art, and what was it like the first time? So how long did it take me? I mean, I don't know. I'm still getting better all the time. When did I start feeling comfortable? It's kind of tricky because I did a lot of traditional art. My first two graphic novels were all traditional artwork. I did do digital stuff, but it was for like sketches and thumbnails and just roughs in general. So I never did finished artwork digitally until about two or 3 years ago. I finally made a graphic novel completely digital, and I've actually switched over to being completely digital now. So it's tough to say when I got good at it. I think I was just using it here on the side and eventually became more and more comfortable. So I was drawing probably for a good 6 years before I switched over to digital completely. And of course, during that time, I was just getting comfortable with drawing and getting better at drawing in general. The first time I tried digital art, I had been doing traditional art for about a year, so I hadn't been doing it for too long, and I bought an Intuos tablet. It was a smaller Intuos tablet that I think I got from like Target or Walmart or something, and that was really hard for me. Having that disconnect between my hand and what I was drawing was really, really rough for me. I couldn't get the lines straight. I couldn't get the lines to line up. It was just really rough, and so I tried that for a while. My drawings looked very wonky. Was learning software and stuff while it was happening, so it wasn't a complete waste. Eventually, I bought a Wacom Cintiq like 13-inch drawing monitor, and that was like a whole game changer for me personally, because I was able to, it was basically like drawing on paper, but it went straight to the computer. So that was a huge game changer for me. I started liking digital art more and more. Of course, there was still a difference between drawing on paper with a pen than drawing on a slick screen with a plastic nib. So it still took some getting used to, but having the drawing tablet was better for me. I know there are a lot of professional artists who do amazing artwork, who do amazing artwork just using a drawing tablet. So it doesn't mean that you need to get a drawing monitor. If you're okay, and I think if you start learning with a tablet straight off the bat, it's going to be easier for you to draw with a tablet versus a drawing monitor. And one of the benefits too about the drawing tablet is you can use it with any computer. You can tuck it away into a backpack or something. It's more transportable, and it also doesn't get hot like a monitor does, so you won't get as sweaty and gross. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Personette S asks, hey, question, how much space should you put on average between panels? So this is really tricky. They're asking for like centimeters. I haven't actually ever measured it. I'm assuming if they're asking, they're probably drawing traditionally. So I would say digitally, I think the amount of space would be 200 or 300 pixels. And I think this is, you know, an inch to like 0.66 of an inch. I don't know what that translates to in centimeters because I'm crazy American and we don't use the metric system. So I don't know it. But yeah, I would say under an inch. Of course, is going to depend on pacing and how much room you need for lettering. So you kind of have to work with that. You can look at other webtoons that are, you know, featured comics that are very popular and see how much spacing they use to get a better gauge of that. But I would say, you know, 200, 300 is a good starting place. LXW says, hi, I love your super informative content. Just wondering, is there work hour obligations for the contract, like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5? Are there also fines for canceling the contract? First, there are no fines for canceling. If you need to cancel for some reason, that's okay. Webtoon could also cancel, in which case they don't owe you anything if they do that. And there are no work hour schedules. If you could do your entire Webtoon episode in 1 hour, that would be perfectly fine. They don't care how much you're working. They just care that they get their episode by the deadline. So if you can do 50 panels in 1 week, that's good. If it takes you 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do an episode, obviously you're going to have to finish your entire contracted story before they ever start posting it, because they're going to need it all beforehand. Since they're posting once a week, you'll have to be done if it takes you 3 weeks. So it's whatever it takes for you to do it is how much you're going to have to work. Wixoon asks, do you have enough sleep daily when making a Webtoon comic? Yes, because I have to get my 8 hours of sleep every day, sometimes 7 hours of sleep, because if I stay up really late because I'm trying to finish something, like, yes, I finished it, but I'm gonna feel like crap for the next 2 days. So I found out for me personally, it's not worth it to skip out on sleep. So no matter what, wherever I am, I'm gonna go to bed at my bedtime, and I'm gonna get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and I'll just pick up where I left off the next day. With that being said, I don't have that much free time. I work 12 hours a day drawing. I spend 2 hours eating lunch, and not 2 hours for lunch, 2 hours for dinner, 2 hours total for dinner, you know, with the prep, with the eating, with the digesting, and then I sleep for my 8 hours. So there's like 2 hours in there where I use for like stretching or working out or getting some water. So there's not a ton of free time in there. I do take a day off every week most of the time. So that's where I kind of relax and chill out a little bit, but I'm not working only 8 hours a day, and I'm not taking off 2 days a week. It's 12 hours a day and 1 day off. So I'm working 6 days a week. So I do get enough sleep, but I probably don't get enough relaxation time. Artiva asks, what should I do when I'm stuck at writing an episode? Also wanted to ask, why do creators change brand names like Chanel into Hanel? Is this because of some copyright thing? Yeah, they totally changed the name because of copyright, because of trademark. I don't think Chanel is gonna come after a comic book creator for talking about Chanel, but why not save yourself the headache and just rename it to Hanel? Some creators might do this just because it sounds funny. Plus you can make more fun of it and not be sued for libel or slander. I don't know which one it is. Like I said, they're probably not gonna do that, but why even give yourself the opportunity for that to happen? And then the first part of that was if you're stuck. So yeah, if you're stuck writing an episode, the few things that I would say to do is just keep writing anyways, and just write down whatever crap comes to mind. Just get something on the paper and move forward. If you really can't think of something, go to a different part of the story. There's nothing to say that you have to write sequentially. If you're stuck in this part, go to the end and write something that you have more ideas about. The other thing I would suggest doing is just going to a quiet place, someplace where there's no distractions, nobody talking to you. Don't listen to music, don't watch TV, don't read a book, and just kind of sit there by yourself in the dark, alone with your thoughts, and just start watching your story in your head, and just kind of think about where your story is going. You know, if you saw Marvel's Avengers, you know, Doctor Strange is sitting there and he's like thinking about all the 1,000,005 different possibilities. Like, just do that in your head. I find that is more relaxing in a way than sitting at your keyboard trying to type out your story, because you can sit there and you can think of like 100 different ways your story could go in the blink of an eye, because that's how fast your brain is. So that's something that I would suggest. If you want a total break though, I would suggest like going for a walk, or maybe stretching or something, or meditating. I wouldn't suggest playing a game or watching a movie, because I think it's important to stay in the creative mindset so you're actually getting something done. I think when you're playing a video game or watching a movie, your whole creative side shuts down because you're sitting there enjoying somebody else's creativity. So it's hard to create when you're intaking. It's hard to export creativity when you're importing creativity. Of course, to each their own. If you get some creativity from playing video games, then totally go ahead and do that. I don't, but I play video games or watch TV when I'm just exhausted. I can't think about being creative anymore, and I just need to shut that part of my brain off. That's when I go to video games or reading comics or watching a movie or watching TV. It's when I'm trying to shut down my creative side so that it can actually take a break and I can re-energize. Artiva asks, how do you manage a story for a specific number of panels? When I write an episode, it seems fine for maybe 30 to 40 panels, but other ones might need more than 40 panels. So how do you work that out? And that's just the way it's gonna work. Some episodes are going to need more panels, and the only thing you can really do there is try to trim some of those panels down, or get rid of stuff, or just accept the fact that it's going to be a 70 panel episode. I've had episodes that were really long and just I couldn't do anything about it. The other option would be to add even more panels and then split it into 2 episodes. Sometimes you might have it to where you can't come up with 40 panels for that particular episode because there's not enough meat in that scene, but there's enough to where you can't add a whole other scene, in which case like that you could start adding panels that really work with the pacing and slow things down or speed things up. So yeah, it's like sometimes you have to deal with it. Sometimes you could split it into 2 episodes, and sometimes you might have to do a little bit of fluffing to get a scene to fill up an entire episode. Farah asked, do Canvas creators get paid? Canvas creators can get paid. There's an ad revenue share program. You need 1,000 subscribers and you need 40,000 page views a month. So it's not something that's super easy. It's basically similar to the YouTube model or the Twitch model. Well, maybe not Twitch, YouTube more. So the more viewers you have, the more ad revenue you're going to get. So I can't really say like how much that would be. Obviously the more viewers you have, the closer it's going to get to being a full-time salary. But like I said, 1,000 subscribers, 40,000 page views, it gives you something to aim for to at least get into the ad revenue share program. But there is no guarantee that you will be paid when you launch a Canvas thing unless it becomes more popular and you have a bunch more readers. Okay, that's it for this month's question and answer episode, or this every bi-month. I don't know how often I do it. I haven't had as many questions. I feel like the questions are very much in a similar vein, asking the same things. So if I start getting some more kind of unique or original questions, or if we go for a longer time period and I come up with better answers for some of these similar questions that keep popping up, I will do another question and answer video. So please keep asking your questions, even if you don't know if I've answered them yet or not. I'm keeping track of all the questions that come up. Also, there have been more comments, so I've been kind of slacking at responding to everybody, but I am reading all of the comments, and if there is a question that I can answer, then I will answer those questions. If you're just telling me that you really like these videos, then thank you very much. I love reading those. They give me energy to keep making videos. I've been thinking about, if you have a specific question you want to answer, want me to answer, maybe type in my name into your comments so that I can do a search for my name inside of the comments and find those questions more easily. Something else to note, when I reply to your comment and you reply back to me, I don't see notifications for that. So I don't know when somebody replies to my reply to their comment. I might see it randomly. Sometimes I see it. I know if I ask that person a question to their question, I will sometimes try to go back and look for that, but if it's been a couple days, I'm not gonna remember. So if you have a follow-up question that you really need me to answer, then just leave another comment, because it's gonna be hard for me to see those replies. And yeah, if you wanna support these videos, please share with your friends and family. And if you wanna keep making comics easier, please be sure to like, link, love, hug, and hit that sub button for more sweet, sweet goodness. See you in the next video. Peace.